It stretches for 23 miles. At its widest, it is 1.7 miles wide. At its deepest, it is 755 feet deep, which is deeper than most of the North Sea. If you brought the Empire State Building over here and you stood in the water, it would disappear below the water. So that's how big it is. So it's a large body of water. It's very black. If you look at the colour of the water, it's very dark. And the reason for that is because of the peat. And peat is rotted wood, and the leaves, the foliage and everything that rot into the banks of the loch, and they get washed into the loch itself and makes it very dark. Now up here in Scotland, a lot of people use peat to burn on their fires during the winter. And as you travel around Scotland, you may see straight lines cut across fields and things, and that's where they've been cutting the peat out. They cut out peat bricks and they leave them on the side to dry, and they burn them on their fires, open fires up here in the winter. But the peat washes into Loch Ness and makes it very dark. The water's very cold. It averages about 6 degrees per year. It does go up to about 7 or 8 in the summer, and it does drop to about 3 or 4 in the winter. But the amazing thing about Loch Ness is it never freezes. Even though the weather up here gets very snowy and very icy, Loch Ness never itself freezes. Other lochs do, so you get a lot of people up here doing wild swimming, paddle boarding or boating during the winter months, because the loch itself never actually freezes. Therefore, if I was a monster, and I'm not, hopefully not a monster, but if I was a monster, what a fantastic place to live. It's deep, it's dark, it's large, and it's very difficult to find anybody. But the first reported sighting of the Loch Ness monster was not in Loch Ness. The first reported sighting of the Loch Ness monster was in the River Ness, where we talked about fishing earlier, salmon and trouts and stuff down there earlier, and that was in AD 565. There was a gentleman called Clumber, who later became Saint Clumber. He had an autobiographer with him, whose name was Abadaman, and this is all recorded by Abadaman, and that they were down in the River Ness, and Clumber needed to get across the River Ness, but he was held up with a funeral. And when he asked what had happened to the person, how they died, they said he'd been savaged by a water beast. And during the afternoon, Clumber sent one of his disciples to swim across, and sure enough, the water beast came out and attacked.
New College University.
That is.
That's the university.